Tyreek Hill was on with Club Shay Shay, and he talked about part of the reason and sort of his explanation in wanting to leave Kansas City and why he's now a Miami Dolphin, and here's how it sounded.
And it would be some games where, like, I get 2 targets, I get 3 targets, and we'll go into meetings, and my coach would be like, hey, we got to get you involved. We got to get you involved. And I'm like,
nah, y'all need to get me involved yesterday. Don't tell me about it today.
Exactly. Like, you know how to, you know the feeling. So I'm calling my agent every week after they say some crazy stuff like that. Like, bro, I got to get out of here.
So apparently it was about targets. He also went on to point out that he's making a lot of money living in Florida, and pointed out that basically his house is free because of the no state tax and all that comes along with it. And
basically his house is free.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, not really. You pay property tax. But in comparison to what he was making in Kansas City, and I played for the Chiefs, trust me, you're based in the state of Missouri. You get taxed pretty heavily there. He probably is looking at the tax savings from the state income tax, that portion, at least saying it's paying for his house. Yeah.
Like the target stuff. Dude, he was targeted almost 160 times last year.
Yeah, but I actually did the math on that since Mahomes has taken over as starter. Kelce has been the most targeted receiver of anyone on the team every single year. And Hill's been second to that. And that's not just even like aggregate, that's or total, that's just even a per game average. So I could see where he'd be saying, like, look, in Miami, there's no doubt he's going to be the number 1 most targeted receiver. It's not even debatable. In Kansas City, while he was there, it was Travis Kelce. And I'll be honest with you, from some people I spoke to about who you try to take away between the two, if you had to pick one, most said Kelce. Most said they felt like he was kind of the straw that stirs the drink, if you will. So take that for what it's worth, I guess.
I would have no problem being that guy if you have a guy like that on your team and Travis Kelce. But for what it's worth, I know a lot of receivers. I do a radio show on the weekends with 2 dominant dudes.
What show is that again?
They're different people, man.
What is that?
It's
up
called
on
the
Game.
JKS.
No, it's up on Game.
Oh,
damn right.
Yeah.
Every Saturday.
You'll never meet a great receiver or a receiver that is really, really worth anything that doesn't want the ball more. You'll never meet one. I've never met one where it's like, I'm okay with what I get. I've just never really. I mean, I've met quiet guys like Andre, Andre Johnson. Like, he's quiet. You'll meet some quiet guys, but you won't necessarily meet a dude that's like, why are you not giving me the ball? Like, I need the ball in my hands. Like, that's how receivers. That's how they are. They're wired that way. Receivers and corners they're different people. They're just different organisms from the rest of the whatever the rest of it is.
Different organisms.
Yeah, they're a different organism. Yeah.
Completely different personality.
Completely different from everything else going on in the ecosystem.
You've never met one wide receiver that was humble and like, I'm just.
I didn't say they're not humble. That's you don't want. I don't want you to misinterpret what I'm saying. It's not that they're not humble. I just don't think that I've ever met a receiver that was okay with the amount of balls that they get.
Yeah, dude, I'll be honest with you. Look, they're always open. They always want the ball. It's someone's always holding, someone's always a PI. And I try to be understanding of that position, because if you think about it, like, they could do everything right the entire game doing their job, right? Like running the right route, and getting in position and all that, and they could still not get the football. Like, it can be probably a really infuriating process for a wide receiver, because they could do everything right and still not really have much of an impact. And on the flip side, as an offensive lineman, if you do everything right, you're going to have a huge impact. You just might not be, noticed for it, right? Like, the wide receiver could do everything wrong, but happen to fall into catching a ball that scores a touchdown, and they get all the credit for it. So it's just a very, different type of position and mindset that I think most of those guys have. But I've never met – I should say never met. Like, I feel like Maurice Stovall, who was one of my wide receivers in college, was one of my more favorite personalities. Just like never really complained, always was like, hey, what are you seeing, or what am I like? Just very, very a good communicator, and try to see the same things. And look, I'm not saying that guys who want the ball, it's a bad thing. It's great. Everyone wants the ball. They just have to have an understanding of how it all works, in the grand scheme of it all. So, I would add that sentiment. Every receiver wants more targets, wants more opportunity. And look, Tyreek Hill's got a point. I mean, I don't know if his speed will ever run out, if there'll ever come a time where, he doesn't have the same burst he used to have. Because if that happens, it completely changes who he is as a player, right? He scares the life out of everyone because of how fast he is and what he can do. It's not because he's like Calvin Johnson. He's 6'6". He's got this huge catch radius where even if Calvin lost his speed, he can still dunk on dudes. You can throw it to him. He's a possession receiver, or throw it up in the red zone. That's not going to be Tyreek Hill if he loses his speed. He's tiny. So I can see why he's trying to maximize this window of opportunity. And he got to Miami. It seems to be kind of greener pastures for him.
I heard a story that Marvin Harrison and Peyton Manning are maybe one of the great quarterback wide receiver duos of all time. It might even be the greatest of all time. And I heard from somebody that Marvin Harrison would be catching passes before games and say, this is about the only time I can get the ball thrown to me. Even make comments. That's Marvin Harrison, who always got targets and always got the ball thrown to him, but even then still thought he should be getting more.
Ask Jerry Rice, did he get enough balls? Ask him. Just ask these dudes. Receivers are different, man. I'm just telling you, they're just wired differently. They feel like their level of importance to the game is more important than everybody else's. Hands down. You want to win the game, give me the ball.
All right, who was the most, I'm trying to think of the right word. Not
Keyshawn?
Not selfless, but who was
selfless?
Who was the most team first, me second wide receiver you ever played with?
Team first, me.
Joe Jurevicius?
Are you asking me or asking LaVar?
Anybody? Come on.
Yeah, I just said Maurice Stovall in college.
Yeah, you did say Maurice Stovall.
I would say in the NFL, I'd have to think through it for a while. Because it's harder at that point in their career. Because even some guys who try to play off like they're, team first, and they'll do whatever it takes on that, but they really want the ball.
Mike Furry. Mike Furry.
Yeah, but even Mike wanted the ball. Come on, Mike caught almost 100 passes, whatever it was in Detroit the one year. You don't think he wanted to experience that again?
But you got to qualify it, right? If you're a one, if you're a one, you're a main guy, I don't know any. If you're a one, I don't know any. I really don't. Just what first came to mind was James Thrash came to mind. One of the most selfless people.
Great name.
Yeah, well, he's one of the dopest dudes you'll meet. Just a really, really good dude. But you know what? He's not a one. If I'm thinking about a one and I start going through the names, it's they all want the ball.
Yeah.
They all want the ball.
I remember one guy in particular we brought in Cleveland in 2007, my rookie year, and it was Tim Carter. He was super fast on track.
I played with Tim in New York.
That's right, New York.
Dude.
You guys.
Good dude.
Great guy.
Dude. Yeah.
And he was one where, we probably could have gotten him some more targets. He was super fast. I think he had a track background, but a lot of times, he'd be running routes that was kind of a clear out route for whoever was coming in on a deep dig behind him or somewhere else, and he'd never complain. And sometimes when you get guys who get that specific job request, hey, you're running for the love of the game. I mean, you're not part of the progression, but we need you to run your absolute best. And so you can scare and get that safety out of there or remove a guy from being in this space to open it up for someone else. He did it every single time. There was never a time where you looked out there and you're like, man, Tim's not running as hard as he should be. He was an awesome, selfless dude like that. And at least I didn't hear him complaining much about it, but
and he only in that year he was only targeted 22 times. I remember that year in Cleveland. He had 8 catches that year in Cleveland.
Role players are role players. When you have role players, you want to have a gracious role player. But if you're a one, them ones they not playing that game. I'm not running nobody off 20 times this game. You crazy? Look at me. Did you see the way Mike Evans was chirping at Tom Brady? That's Tom Brady. He wasn't happy. Like most people, people think that quarterbacks are divas. Quarterbacks are quarterbacks. That's how we look at quarterbacks. Their quarterbacks are the quarterbacks. Like that's what they are. The divas are the receivers and the corners. Those are the divas. Think about it. Who's the biggest diva in coaching right now? Think about it. What's the first name that comes to mind? Okay.
Yeah.
What position?
Yeah.
All right.
Corner.
You know what I mean? Like the biggest divas are receivers and corners because they know there's no help. It's just them. It's just them. I don't rely on anyone else other than quarterback, put the ball where I can get it. That's it. I don't need you to be accurate. Just put it where I can get it and throw it to me. But they feel like corners and receivers feel like that is it. Like we have no help. There's nothing there. What we do is what we do. It's on an island, da-da-da, boom, boom, boom. This is us. It's our game. The ones, it's our game. We're going to win or lose because of what I do today. And I can't say that they're wrong.